The definition of an accident is something that happened unexpectedly and by sheer chance. There was nothing unexpected about this. This was expected by everybody that had access to a little bit of information. And I think that if it wasn't an accident, it then has to be some degree of crime.
Hi everyone, interesting update about the Titan Submersible incident, the Oceangate Titan incident. We're into week 2 with the hearings, and there are things where when I heard it, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, did he really say that? So stay with me, guys. It's going to be interesting. Questions are raised. Were warning signs ignored? Yes, they were. If you want just about that question, a detailed video, check out my Titan Submersible playlist. There's all the details that you need to know. I have taken so much time over the last 15 months to investigate and go to every single detail. Here we will just go through the hearings and what the headlines basically that you need to know what just happened. And we know 5 people last year that were hoping to view the Titanic wreckage were lost when their submersible imploded in the Atlantic Ocean, and a Coast Guard panel that's investigating the case right now has begun the second week of their hearings. So here's what witnesses have been saying so far, and I want to start with the company co-founder, with the Oceangate co-founder, and what he is saying raises a big question mark. And I don't know how you feel, guys. Let me know in the comments, but I'm a little bit upset about what he was saying. So he basically said that he's hopeful that this incident has caused a renewed interest in exploration. You hear me right. So he is the co-founder of Oceangate that did own this experimental submersible that has imploded on its way to the wreck of the Titanic. And this co-founder, he told the Coast Guard panel just today that he hopes the tragedy yields a renewed interest in exploration. I think this is totally misplaced, because this was a bad example for how not to do things, maybe even criminal. My personal opinion is yes, but that's to be determined in the further investigations. But to use that chance here with these hearings to say there should be renewed interest in exploration, there should be interest in making exploration safer and make it impossible for money greedy, selfish narcissists to use other innocent people, to use their money to proceed with their own ego or with the wishes that their own ego has, ignoring all safety regulations and just tricking people into going on a trip that is so unsafe, despite all the warnings that Stockton Rush received from the whole submarine community. So I am upset that especially the co-founder of Oceangate is saying something like this. So he's a businessman, Guillermo Söhnlein. He helped found Oceangate together with Stockton Rush. So he said, and this is quote, "This can't be the end of deep ocean exploration." Yes, that is true, but this should be the end of something like this, like amateur job, I would say. So he said that Oceangate was started with a laudable goal. He said we wanted to give humanity greater access to the ocean, specifically the deep ocean. Yeah, that is great, but not at the cost of safety and not by tricking people into this. Watch my video, he lied. There you see everything what Stockton Rush was hiding from the paying customers despite having this waiver. So, but there's many other, the Marine Institute in Canada had the Titan Submersible on their lot. They were even thinking about taking students on the trip had there been an empty seat. Definitely their students were on the Polar Prince when it happened. So they had equipment. They could have done some testing on the Titan, but they didn't. So check out that video as well. As you might be able to hear, I'm upset about what Guillermo Söhnlein testified. I really, really am. So put that aside. Let's hear what other experts are saying. Roy Thomas did testify. He's of the American Bureau of Shipping, and he testified about the challenges that are associated with carbon fiber. That was the material they used to build the hull of the Titan Submersible. So he has said that carbon fiber is susceptible to fatigue failure, and that has been widely known, and everyone told Stockton Rush, right? He had previous dives where they heard the cracking of the hull, and they had to even replace the hull one time. But then he didn't even x-ray it, scan it, ultrasound, nothing, right? So Roy Thomas, he basically noted carbon fiber is difficult to manufacture, and that is also interesting. Salt water can damage and weaken the material in multiple ways. And when we look at the video here of the wreckage that the Coast Guard has released, you know, many people thought, okay, the sub has imploded, so there was nothing left, right? We saw the pictures of the wreckage parts when they were taken out of the ocean. But this video, that is interesting. For the first time, it really shows how they found the wreck of the Titan Submersible on the ocean floor near the Titanic. So it was more intact than many people thought, because I mean, it's kind of stupid. You build a carbon fiber hull and you have titanium rings at both ends, and then the most vulnerable point where all the pressure is in the middle where the people are sitting. So it should have been, just with a little bit of logic, it should have been clear that this is not safe at all. So plus the salt water, right, can enter and cause some damage. So Roy Thomas said there is no recognized standard for a submersible carbon fiber pressure hull for human occupancy, and that carbon fiber is susceptible to fatigue failure under repeated external pressurization. So that was known. Stockton Rush was arrogant about this. He said, you know, rules are there to be broken. And he said, I've broken the rules with good engineering, despite everyone who knows about this was warning him. So why not sending this thing down to the Titanic unmanned multiple times? Then they would have known, right? I mean, they knew before when they were doing way shallower dives and they heard the cracking and the noises of that hull giving in. So it's good that they have been hearing this expert, because it's important for the investigation to have someone independent that wasn't involved into that whole submersible community. So also, next basically important topic is that the Oceangate lead engineer wouldn't set foot into the Titan. So that says a lot, right? It's like an engineer, you build an airplane that you want to use commercially, but the ones who build it don't want to get into it. I mean, Stockton Rush got into it. So it was interesting. We've heard from him before. Tony Nissen, he's the lead engineer. He was reporting about a dive that was taking place several years before the fatal accident, and he was the lead engineer at Oceangate, and he said that he felt pressured to get the Titan ready, despite him thinking that they needed more time. But he testified Stockton Rush was very difficult to deal with and had quite a temper. So people were giving in not to be fired, because he did fire many people. So he was working on getting it ready, but he refused to pilot it when Stockton Rush asked him to do that. So that basically says it all. Was that the reason why Stockton Rush did pilot it himself? I mean, it still stuns me that Narjolet, who has been down to the Titanic so many times, a seasoned Titanic expert, really did go down there into this sub. But, you know, Nissen really said, I told Rush I'm not getting in it, right? And he also said Stockton Rush changed his demands from day to day. One day he wanted this, the next day he wanted this, and then he really got a temper. And then he was also focused on costs and on schedules. Of course, he needed the money from paying customers in order to finance that, it seems. And if you've watched my previous videos, he was chasing customers. Really, he flew to Las Vegas to get some millionaires into the sub. So Nissen testified that he tried to keep his clashes with Rush hidden so that others in the company wouldn't be aware of that friction between the two. I mean, that's okay, because it's not good for an atmosphere in the company if, you know, two major key people are fighting publicly about this. Other people might lose faith in that project, but, you know, when it was coming to paying innocent customers on the sub, should he have spoken out more intensely? It is hard to say. What we do know, and what he also testified, is that the Titan did malfunction many times before its fatal dive, right? But that didn't keep Stockton Rush from still bringing on the paying customers. We also heard a testimony of a scientific director. His name is Stephen Ross, and he said that on a dive that was taken just a few days before the Titan imploded, the vessel had a problem with its ballast that keeps the vessel stable. And you can also get rid of that ballast if you want to get to the surface. So the issues caused passengers to tumble about. Wow, that sounds scary, especially if you have heard what the last communication was when the Titan was down at the Titanic with the 5 passengers on board. The last text messages between the Titan and the Polar Prince, the support vessel, because then, you know, they seemed to have problems with that ballast. So passengers were tumbling just a few days before that, and they would crash into the bulkhead. So imagine this happened at a shallower dive, and then you're down there almost at the bottom at the Titanic. And it seems, if you look at the text messages, go through my video, we'll go through this. They tried to get back up, but they couldn't. Something was wrong with releasing the ballast, it seems. So further, Stephen Ross said when this happened, that they were tumbling and that they were crashing into the bulkhead, one passenger was hanging upside down. That is scary. And that was just a few days before you go to like that immense depth with so much pressure. That is insane. This is beyond negligence. So I'm sure there will be more cases after these hearings, in my opinion. So, okay, he says the one passenger was hanging upside down. The other 2 passengers managed to wedge themselves into the bow. So Ross said nobody was injured, but it took an hour to get the vessel out of the water. So imagine this. And he said he didn't know if a safety assessment or hull inspection was carried out after the incident. Probably not. We haven't heard anything about that. So could the hull have been damaged more severely already through that incident, and just a few days later it imploded? Sounds plausible, right? And I bet you Stockton Rush didn't tell his paying customers on the day they left for the Titanic that this had happened. I'd be surprised if he did. But again, also Stephen Ross then said it wasn't the first time that the Titan had problems. Another passenger that was on a 2021 mission to the Titanic also said that this mission, that journey was aborted when the Titan started experiencing mechanical problems, equally as bad, right? And as I said, if you hear what the last communications were, it seems there were also mechanical problems, releasing the weights or something like this. So this passenger says, quote, "We realized that all it could do was spin around in circles, making right turns." His name is Fred Hagen. That's what he says. And he says, at this juncture, we obviously weren't going to be able to navigate to the Titanic. Yeah, you would think so, right? He said the Titan resurfaced and the mission was then scrapped. And he said he was aware of the risks involved in the dive. Was he really? Was he aware of all the risk? Well, if he says so, he says anyone that wanted to go was either delusional if they didn't think that it was dangerous, or they were embracing the risk. Yes, for sure. I'm sure that everyone was aware that it was dangerous, but Stockton Rush has covered up incidents and dangers, and he didn't let his passengers know that the whole submersible community basically told him that this is, inflicted self-harm if they would go down there, and that carbon fiber is not suitable. The way he made people believe it's okay, it is experimental, there is a risk, but all the flaws that he knew about, he didn't tell people, and it wasn't in the waiver. One employee, for example, also testified that he had concerns and that the authorities ignored his concerns. So that was Operations Director David Lockridge. He said the tragedy could possibly have been prevented if a federal agency had investigated the concerns that he himself raised with them on multiple occasions. Why has nothing been done? Lockridge was an expert. I mean, you know what? If Stockton Rush had gone down there, or some people that worked at Oceangate, it's an experimental sub. I mean, they can do whatever they want. But making this a tourist thing, bringing paying customers on board, and then basically making them excited about being not employees of the company, but so to speak, like explorers that are part of this, so that they would not have so much legal protection as if they were just tourists. But people were not realizing this. They thought, oh, we're now mission specialists. That's how Stockton Rush called them. But there was in my opinion, evil reason behind this, because mission specialists were supposed to have less legal protection should there something happen, but the people were not aware about this. Again, watch my video. He lied. There's way more than this. So David Lockridge did alert the authorities, and the Marine Institute in Canada, renowned institute that does testing of vessels and submarines and stuff like this, they didn't think it was a good idea to look into this. They were even promoting it in posts. I have made a video about this as well, guys. It's a longer video because there's a lot to cover. So they didn't think carbon fiber, is a problem. They should have heard about all the concerns in the submersible community about that crazy guy that's building a submersible out of carbon fiber. No, they sent their students on the polar trip on the fatal day. So after Lockridge had testified this week, the federal agency has responded that at the time when Lockridge made them aware, that they had promptly referred his concerns to the Coast Guard. So now they're shifting the blame. We passed it on. We're not responsible. This is how it sounds to me. So then there was a member of the Explorers Club. Her name is Renata Rojas. It seems she had a rosier view of things. The Explorers Club has lost 2 paying passengers on the fatal dive. So Renata, she struck a different tone at the hearings with her testimony. She said she felt Oceangate was transparent in the run-up to the dive, and she never felt that the operation was unsafe. She was a passenger on a previous dive, and she was volunteering with the surface crew when the Titan actually imploded on that day. So she says some of those people are very hardworking individuals that were just trying to make dreams come true, she said. I fully believe that. You know, I don't blame Oceangate employees that were building this. Many of them raised their concerns. I'm sure it is, or it was, difficult to work under Stockton Rush, but for me, the person that is to blame the most is definitely Stockton Rush. I'm kind of saddened that such a nice and experienced guy like Narjolet would not interfere when paid passengers, when, you know, the Dawoods were going on board with a 19-year-old kid. Why didn't he say anything? Maybe he was too driven by his desire to see the Titanic again. And there was an interview with Narjolet, and he was actually asked, you know, why he's going down there if this is so experimental. And he basically said, well, if something happens and they need help down there, maybe it's better if I'm with them because I'm experienced. Yeah, that might be the case if you get lost or if the sub gets entangled in one of these many cables around the Titanic, which has happened to other subs that were safe because they had a different kind of hull. But, you know, it seems he didn't think that this would be so dangerous. His family has filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Oceangate for like hiding the dangers so that Narjolet did go down there. I'm actually surprised that the other families did not file a lawsuit because, in my opinion, Narjolet should have known. He was basically involved. He was not one of these tourists, paying passengers, in my opinion. So that is just a quick update. There's more to come, guys, but I will cut this into pieces so that you don't have to watch in like a 2-hour-long video. Yeah, guys, subscribe if you like that. Check out my Titan playlist, but check out what's going on with that super yacht that sank off the coast of Sicily, the Bayesian. There's new, shocking in my view, information out. It seems the owner of the yacht had 2 top secret hard drives that he was carrying with him all the time, and they're still down there in the Bayesian in a watertight safe, and they contain material of secret services of the US, of the UK, and Israel. Can you imagine this? Now they have put 24-hour surveillance around the wreckage, down in the water and up on the water, because they're scared that the Chinese or Russians might want to get this information. So what was it? Check out that video. It's in the end screen here. I hope to see you soon, guys. Check out the links in the description of this video. You can join my channel for great behind the scenes and funny stuff. And if you want to support the channel, check out my buymeacoffee.com website and subscribe there for free. I hope I see you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.